All the content contained in this webcast is for informational purposes only. The investments and strategies contained in this webcast may not be suitable for you. Please consult your own independent financial advisor before making any investment or trading decisions. Good morning, traders and investors around the world, and welcome to Monday's edition of premarketinfo.com, where we prepare you for the most important hour of the day, the first hour. Well, good morning to you, Dennis. We actually have a little bit of a sell-off going here, though. But if you look at the market and you see it's down 5 points, it's almost at the high of the day.
Yeah, actually, the market bottomed out at 1342.50. We're down 20 at one point overnight, so we have had a bounce off the lows. Joel, your voice sounds a little hoarse here today, though. A little exciting weekend there for you. Kentucky Derby. You had a good call on that blog. Maybe some of our listeners took, or our readers took advantage of your blog posting there because you called it, man. You called the Derby winner.
It's actually hoarse because I don't know if you heard me way over where you live, but I was screaming so loud when "I'll have another" came down the stretch there, Dennis. I'm telling you, it's so much fun to predict and hit the ponies every once in a while. It's kind of like the market a little bit, Dennis. You read the charts, the past performance, and you look for a good risk-reward ratio. That horse had won the Santa Anita Derby coming from behind, and that's the way the Derby winners come. But even a blind squirrel can find an acorn every once in a while, so can't rest on my laurels too much. But I guess a little bit of the rebound here is due to your buddy Warren Buffett on TV.
Warren Buffett is on TV. You know what I got a kick out of here, Joel? Just in the pre-market. It was just an erroneous trade, but I was watching at 7:05 Eastern this morning. If you look at your tape on his Burke.A stock, Buffett's on CNBC, and his stock all of a sudden trades down 89%, just 100 shares at $12,550. It was obviously it closed at $121,000. So somebody hit a bad bid down there that didn't have a zero on it. So they've busted the trade, but it was just got a kick out. It was like, did Warren Buffett realize that his stock just went down 89%? But
It's a good buy.
that's a good buy. Too bad it got busted on the guy. So yeah,
Yes.
the pre-market liquidity on Berkshire A not that good. But
Okay.
yeah, so Buffett's on there. He's talking about a few of his positions, IBM, etc. So you want to be careful if you're obviously trading those stocks. Do
Right.
technical on IBM there, Joe, because he was mentioning it that they were increasing their holdings in it.
Yeah, before I go into that, to the IBM, I just want you to know we do talk about Warren a lot and some of his investments and the effect of his investments, are on the market, the short-term and long-term reactions. But I'll tell you, Dennis, I was really disappointed in Warren this weekend. He held his annual meeting on the day of the Kentucky Derby.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Wow, you'd hate that.
I mean, not that
All
I'm
the horse lovers are not liking that.
Okay, IBM, let's talk about that. We had identified that 206.50 level, Dennis, that there'd been 4 or 5 lows in that area, and it broke down through there on Friday, got a nice sell-off. This one's kind of tricky, Dennis, because since we've popped off that 196.79 number, there's a lot of real estate in between the lows there. So there's really, if you're trying to buy this thing on a pullback, just be cognizant of those lows. But I'm looking for this thing to slide back under 200.
Not a heck of a lot here. Obviously, we had such a run from that bottom that we had at 196.79. We basically were straight up for the back half of April. Now that we are breaking down, I think rallies probably need to be sold in something like this, and I think you'll definitely run into resistance up there in that old 206 area. It's trading down a buck here in the pre-market with the broad market, so it is falling through, and you got to almost think this 200 number eventually may come into play again.
Okay, I mean, I'm going to talk about Apple, and you keep calling me an Apple hater, and so do my wife. So do my wife and kids. But Dennis, I mean, what do you have to say that all the gains from the earnings has been given? It's back, it's down, it's below that level, knocking on the door of 555 here.
I mean, we always talk about these gap stocks like to fill gaps. Obviously, we had a 50-point gap when it did announce earnings and just slowly took 7 or 8 trading sessions, but it filled the entire gap and we're back down to where we were when it announced. And they were good earnings, but like you were saying in your blog, they had warned on the third quarter. Even though they really beat the number, and obviously these stores are phenomenal. You go into the mall, it's the busiest store in the mall always. So Apple's still doing a lot of things right, but man, it's had a heck of a run here, and this 555 number, Joel, that is critical to hold.
Okay, moving on to some of the other Big Ten here. The two oils been breaking down. ExxonMobil once again got back over 87, Dennis, but that's just like I said in the weekly outlook, it's like a death sentence every time that stock gets over 87.
Million times we've been over 87 and it's just banged right back down. I mean, you can count them on the charts here. It's got to be 15 times where we trade over 87. Cannot get over 88 though. There's just definitely some traders up there just continuing to dump. It's followed through now. We kind of taken out support. This old 85 area was giving us a little bit of support. We've taken that out. We have a double bottom here now at 84.39 and 84.40 from Friday. So if it takes that out, which it probably will in the pre-market, it starts to open up again on your weekly outlook. We were looking at that. It could have a target price on the short side of that at $82 if this thing really starts to break down. I don't think it's going to get there today, but that would be a target for you swing traders out there.
Okay, and Microsoft continues to swoon off its earnings. Came up just short of the 52-week high when those great earnings are announced. Consolidated a lot yesterday, or last week, in a 50-cent range, and now it's just in a full retreat. Could be heading down to the $30 level.
Man, all these charts just look broken. You look across the board, and you had a really bearish outlook. Like if you can go on our site there on the blog, you can read Joel's weekly outlook, and it wasn't pretty. I kind of tend to agree with it. A lot of these stocks are breaking down. I mean, we're 5 points off those lows, 1352 area, which is a critical area to hold. We did trade through it, in the overall market and the pre-market, but we have bounced up, and if we take it out during the regular session, then it could really start to get ugly there again, especially since we traded down overnight through it. But Microsoft specifically, I think you're right there at this 30.76 is where it's trading in the pre-market. So we are moving a bit lower. If you look, early April we had that low at 30.23. That's now only about 50 cents away from here. That could come into play as early as today if we really went into a sell-off. But you never know. Nothing goes straight down either. So you often do see bounces. But when charts are broken, it's often a good idea to sell the bounces.
Okay, and one that's hanging up near its 52-week high, Dennis, is AT&T really hasn't given it back. It spent a little time over 33 last week. That's first time it's been above that level since September 2008. And it held up pretty well on the sell-off yesterday. Only down 2 cents in the pre-market. Perhaps we're getting a little sector shift here in defensive stocks. I'm looking at this 32.76 area. If you're a long-term player here, you've been riding it on the long side. Breaks down below the 32.76, 75 area. I'd be a little cautious. I'm holding along.
I mean, we've had a heck of a run here. We've had a triple top. You could call it up here in this 32.15 area. The stock is, holding right here. You're right. We break through that 32.76, then you say 32.50 maybe is the next stopping point. The only thing keeping this stock afloat, obviously, is that nice dividend. It has went ex-dividend, it just went a couple weeks ago there, but it still has a 5.36% yield up here. People are attracted to higher yielding stocks. I think that's why it hasn't been hit. It's considered a more conservative defensive play, so it hasn't been hit as much as some of these other stocks have. But that being said, if the stock market really goes into a broad sell-off and we start having problems like Joel was saying in Europe again, I think all stocks will get hit. So, rallies up over 33 in this thing might be a good idea to take some profits or to try a short.
Okay, and last of the Big Ten before we move into the market movers, a little bit of a scary chart here in Wells Fargo, Dennis. Been consolidating between the 32.5 and 34.5 area now for quite some time. Below this 32.43 low that we made back in the middle of the month, boy, Dennis, it really opens up there. It kind of reminds me of when we were looking at Bank America long ago when Bank America was trying to be a double-digit stock. and we were looking at that $8 handle,
Yeah.
and there was absolutely nothing there.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, it took us a few days. We got through the 8 handle. Now that stock is at 763, where it should be. And you're looking at this Wells Fargo chart, and you're just thinking below this 32.43, Dennis. I mean, is there any reason to be long that stock below that level?
Yeah, scary when you start making new lows of the move, and obviously 32.43 is the low of the move. Then and the financials overall, Joel, like we've talked about them a bit. But man, they just haven't performed well here in the last month whatsoever. Like look at Goldman Sachs, Joel. It's breaking down too. Did you see that on the chart? That key 110 area. We're trading through that now. In the pre-market, we're down at the pre-market hasn't had a trade yet. We're offered at 108.58, so offered a bit lower with the overall market. But man, that's breaking down too, making a new low on the move. Morgan Stanley, even Joel, that's been breaking down. Like look at Morgan Stanley. This was $21 just over a month ago. Now it's 16. There's some problems here with your financials, and if it is, and I think that's got a lot to do with Europe too. We were talking about the European banks last week starting to look weak again. Obviously, they got the vote over there, they got some other stuff going on over there. But at the same time, these U.S. financials are not performing well. Makes the whole market kind of look sketchy to me when these financials are breaking down like this.
Okay, and the Big Ten stock in the news down quite a bit here. Procter Gamble down 62 cents.
Getting a little bit overdone, maybe. Hard to say, though. It's downgraded by Wells Fargo. That's why it's trading down here today. I mean, it's kind of, you look at this, where is it going to probably go? The 63.30, 63.30 on 63.40 area has this triple bottom down here. Joel highlighted in the weekly comments. I mean, if it gets down to that area, probably find some support. Below that, it'll find more support at 63, big hole number that it hasn't seen for about 2.5 months. So definitely be some institutional buying pressure there. So I think on a pullback here, maybe you could buy it. The only argument against it would be the double top that it's made now. So you kind of got two. It's range bound here until it can break below the 63.30, or obviously not today, but if it was to break above that 64.75. But I'd look at that 63.30 area as a potential bouncing place for Procter & Gamble. Joel, we got some market movers. One just hit the tape. CTSH, which is Cognizant. They are lowering guidance, and the stock is getting murdered. It's at $61. CTSH, $61.45 now. So really getting beat here. We got to go out to the weeklies because the daily isn't good enough. If we look at the weeklies, we had multiple bottoms in that $60 area, Joel. Kind of just bounced off there in the pre-market. Got as low as $60.42. What do you think on CTSH?
I got it. CTSH.
Yeah, Cognizant.
Okay, I don't know all the symbols.
Cognizant's a big one, though. Come on.
I'm not cognizant of that.
Cognizant of that.
Okay.
Yeah, $60.
Wow, Dennis. The street never likes to hear this kind of news, obviously, right? So people are jumping on this thing right now. We just hit a pre-market low, Dennis, of 60.42. And now we're getting a bounce. Decent volume associated right that. So you keep an eye on that 60.42 level. And then, man, I'm gonna have to go to the monthlies, Dennis. You really threw me a curveball here. 60 obviously was the low that you had in this stock back in November of 2011. Hit 59.95. That's going to be excellent support for this stock. Below that, I'm looking at the September 2000 low of 58.15. On any kind of bounce, it looks like the sellers are sticking their head out at the $63 level. So let's keep an eye on the 60.42 low down to 59.95 and use 63 as your swing number.
GGC was in the news overnight, actually on Friday night. WLK had a bid out there for them. They've pulled that bid now, so GGC actually tanking off that news. The low, I think I got down in the 27s. We'll have Joel check that out. But Friday night, I think it got as low as in the 27 handle. It's trading 31.18 right now. This $30 area, we bought them at 30.06 there. Back on March the 9th. So I think that area, I'll just bring a closer chart for you, but I think that area might provide you some initial support if it gets down to that area. Below that, though, then you have that gap, Joel. So, and obviously, that was the gap up when the bid came in originally. So this whole thing's off the table. It'd be scary if it started trading below 30.
Yeah, it did hit 27.56 in the pre-market, Dennis. A little bit of an overreaction there. I guess I'll just throw out a word of caution on things like this. The deals are on, the deals are off. 1,500 shares of what I see. Yeah, it's some volume in this, so not a lot of volume. You just got to be careful on these kind of things because they could restructure the bid or someone else may come into it. But you're right. If it's going to go back down to its gap level, Dennis has quite a ways to go down to 24.52.
AIG was in the news after hours too on Friday. Treasury coming out saying they're going to sell $5 billion worth of stock, pricing that at $30.50. I'll tell you, these prices, these secondary offering prices, often act like a magnet. We've said it on the show lots of times in the past. That's the price. So basically, what do you do with a magnet trade? You know, I say it all the time. What is a magnet trade? Well, that's a price where the stock will tend to gravitate to. So if the stock starts to move up and starts trading 31, you know, 50 cents away, it might be a play to short it as it'll pull it back down. Or if it starts trading at $30, it might be a play to buy it as it might pull it back up. Like, that's kind of the idea with the magnet trade. It's more, though, that usually puts a cap on the price as opposed to a floor. So, you know, I wouldn't say, you know, I'd be a buyer at 30, but the thing starts going up to 31, then you might think about shorting because that 30, 50, until that secondary offering, you know, is done, that price tends to pull it down. And that's exactly what's happening here in the pre-market, Joel. It's trading at $30.52, which is right there at that price. So obviously that's going to be the price where it's going to gravitate to here, Joel.
Right. You have more experience with those kind of trades than I do. I mean, I'm looking at it now, and it looks like the government is out there selling right now because it's traded 30.52, 30.53. It's traded 18 million shares in the pre-market.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's just churning it out. So someone thinks it's a good buy, and someone thinks it's a good sell, Dennis. It'd be a good level to keep an eye on for the next couple weeks.
There's really not a ton of movers today. We're kind of coming to the end of earnings season here. We can talk about Tyson Foods. We're reaching a bit. TSN for you conservative stock players. Did trade up a little bit on their report. I was looking at this 1850 level. Looks enormous to me. So if you like trading the little conservative stocks, if it does open up into that resistance area of 1850, maybe that puts a lid on it. And then support's pretty well defined too. We've had a couple bottoms in this 18 area. So 1804 being the close here. If it takes out that 18, then I get a little bit nervous to be long it. But, you know, maybe you can trade in that range for you range-bound traders.
Yeah, real well-defined resistance here at 1850. We did get a pop in the pre-market up to 1847. Above that 1850 level, definitely have some room to go up to the $19 level. And I have to agree with you here at the support at 18.
Well, that's all we've got for the market movers. What do you think this overall market here, though, Joel? Because obviously we traded down significantly overnight. We have bounced. You know, we were down 20. We are only down 4.5 here now, Joel. What do you think overall here?
Yeah, these are tough calls because, you know, you look at that support level 52.50 and it crushed that in the pre-market. So I'm still, even though the pre-market got 10 points below that, still keeping a real close eye on 13.52.50. That has been the low of the move. Also popping up, Dennis, you had the Friday weekly low at 61.50 was the close there at 62.50. I think that's, you know, obviously it's going to bump up there and fill the gap. If it gets room above that, it has some room to run up to the 13.70 area. But I would look, I think they can get it down at least that 13.52.50 level, test that, and then you have your good resistance at Friday's low and close. See if we can get a little pop up at this market, perhaps short at a little bit higher prices. So that's our Monday morning edition of premarketinfo.com, and we'll be back with you tomorrow.